Dr. Kipper started dealing with addiction problems some 30 years ago because you had a good friend of yours, jump off of a building because he was addicted to what? I don't even remember what he was addicted to, but because he couldn't get any satisfaction, couldn't get any help.
It was 30 years ago, and we didn't really understand what to do. At that point, we had psychologists. We didn't have Betty Ford. We didn't have any of these centers. And also, we didn't have any education. I went to UCLA, great school, but there was no course in addiction. So when someone came in with an addiction problem, once you recognized it, you sent people for therapy, and the therapists weren't trained in this disease. Also, here we are 30 years later, and we now know that addiction is a medical disease. It's based in your brain chemistry. It's determined by your genetics, and it's triggered by stress. That's an easy mantra, but we didn't know that 30 years ago. So we were treating the behaviors and not treating the actual disease.
Let me ask you something, because I know you've been working on the book a long time. Why write this book, and why does it come out now? Why do you feel compelled to put it out now?
First of all, there is new information that's on the table now. We have now recognized that addiction is a medical disease. It's a chronic medical disease. Whereas before we saw this as a behavioral malady, now we understand what really causes addiction. So the origins have been identified. There are people that have a greater predisposition. We've identified certain genes that are associated with addiction. Home environments will predispose. If you have divorce in your family, if you have drug use in your family environment, if you have criminal behavior in your family where someone's been incarcerated, these environmental issues are very common. Sexual abuse is a very common issue that predisposes to mental illness, which then predisposes to drug addiction. If you look at Bill Wilson's story, he's the founder of AA. He was addicted to alcohol, and this is actually a chapter in the book. It's interesting. He was addicted to alcohol. He recognized the value of having a support system, which is how AA was born. He also recognized that there was a missing link, that even though he was in this support system, he still had a craving. He still had a drive towards his alcohol. So here was a guy that was, as we now look back, was serotonin deficient. He needed something to raise his basic neurochemistry back to some normal value so that he could function in the world and not have these cravings.
If people have all the resources possible, they can find the best doctors, they can throw as much money at it as they want, and go to clinics, rehabs that are $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a month. Why is the recidivism rate over 90%?
Because abstinence is not the only issue. Yes, you can isolate somebody for 30 days, you can change their behavior for 30 days, but then you put them out into the real world where they are having to live their life with their family, with these relationships that are generally broken. And what you haven't fixed is you haven't fixed the fundamental process in this disease, which is their brain chemistry. So what we have been doing traditionally, which has not worked, which is why the recidivism rate is over 90%, is that we're treating the behavioral malady. We're not treating the underlying medical problem, which is the brain chemistry.
And by the way, I've seen you do it successfully, and other people are now getting into this. The book is called, by the way, The Addiction Solution. Controversy here is people go, whoa, 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 whoa. I want my kid off drugs, and I want him pure. I don't want him taking anything, and any drug you give him is a drug. It's a drug. Wow, you're giving him a drug to get him off drugs. So the resistance is there because it seems contra-intuitive to go, I'm going to give him a drug to get him off of drugs. It's cheating, or he's not clean. And I know you get that a lot.
The analogy, a perfect analogy, is diabetes. You've got an organ in the body that doesn't produce a chemical, in this case insulin. Now you give insulin back and this person functions well and their diabetes is controlled. You take a different organ, the brain, and you look at those chemical deficiencies and you restructure those and you rebalance those, and now you have a better functioning brain.
But do you get that a lot, what I said, which is
all the time.
I'm resistant?
All the time.
That's the biggie, right?
And also, this has not been a paradigm. This is a new paradigm in treating addiction. It's been over 100 years since we've had a new paradigm to treat this disease. I think that there is such an epidemic, as we've talked about, and also the book itself acts as a blueprint for people that don't have a mechanism to get help and don't have a doctor to go talk to, don't have an understanding of what this disease is. Very few doctors understand addiction, and less than 0.5% of all doctors treat addiction. So it's not like this is a rare disease. This is a common disease.
And we don't know how to deal with it. The book is called The Addiction Solution. And by the way, it's not just a solution and an option for the addict. It helps with the guilt. It helps with the family of the addict understanding what's going on and what the addict's going through in a different way too. Which once that, and I saw it with the guy that we had in the alcoholic, I've seen it on our show. Once you come to that conclusion, once some family members go, oh, I get this, it's an illness, and they treat the addict a different way, it's less of an indictment, and it's much more of a supportive relationship. You owe it to yourself if you have a family member or somebody you love who's got an addiction problem, to look at a new way, an additional tool to maybe help you deal with it. It's a really well-written book. It's a well-researched book, and I live it with you.